Bearcat Bounce podcast, back at it again. Back, right? That's one way to say it. Back. The Bearcats are back. Massive, ginormous, enormous, gigantic. Throw in any synonym you can. Addition to the upcoming season for your Cincinnati Bearcat basketball program. And also some more news and notes on the schedule that is to come for the basketball program. Additions to the football program as Coach Scott Satterfield inches ever closer to year 2 in the Big 12 and in his era. And then, of course, baseball, baby. We're talking a little baseball. Head on out. Check out on TV tomorrow the Bearcats in the Big 12 tournament after what was a historic and phenomenal finish to the regular season and a comeback thrilling win. We're going to dive into all of that because it's Monday. It's a Monday also where I'm going to bring in guys, pals, squad. That's right. We're all together here, ready from the tip, from the opening pitch, from the kickoff, if you will. Without further ado, Aaron Smith, Chad Brendel, Ryan Royer. Gentlemen, how are we?
Good. Dealing with a little sinus, little head cold deal, but I'm good. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. I don't feel awful. I can't breathe. But other than that, I'm good.
Who was it? Whose flu game was it during the little subathon last week?
Oh, that was John Daniel, who almost died during the show. JD.
Survive in advance, man.
It's a valiant effort. I mean, he fought. You talk about battling through. He battled through.
Battle, baby.
I thought he was just going to fall out.
I did go back and listen to that and just catching a wild stray from Aaron during the John Daniels interview, which is fine. You know,
no way.
I'm accustomed to it. I'm accustomed to it, but yeah, we'll chat. Hopefully you'll make it through. But Aaron, sir, how are we?
Doing all right. Last night, the baby spent the night at her aunt's house, so we had a night without the baby, and we're trying to get her acclimated to spending the night with her aunt as we're getting ready to go to the hospital here in the next month for the delivery of my second daughter.
I was gonna say Aaron chicken Aaron, but we know that's not she doesn't want it. She didn't even want to look at you right now.
The boys were here.
Get out.
The boys were here. It was foot rubs and all that kind of stuff. So.
The bounce chicka wow wow is Aaron as he eyes another Scentsy light in the fridge during the little night off, huh? Hey now. Let's go. Well, good, Aaron. Good to have you back. Brennick's back in the fold, and we're excited as baby number 2 right around the corner.
Around the corner.
Mr. Royer, sir, beat me to the jump again. You were on screen when I popped in. There's no better feeling than on a Monday seeing Mr. Royer right here.
Shit's changed around here, man. We're getting in the lobby 5 minutes late now, not 15.
Hey,
new year, new me.
New sheriff in town, huh?
Yeah. Aaron and I had a little wager on who was going to pop in first, and Royer won.
Gosh, we have these little projects in my warehouse, so that's just like, it is a pain in the butt. But you know what? I'm sure if I went on and told everyone about it, they'd cancel out like Chad did, and they'd also probably say like they start talking about basketball at the 5-minute mark. So I'm not going to even dive into what the project was.
I don't think people want me blowing my nose on screen. So.
There are some people, remember the little nose blowers when they would like blow the snot and then look at it? There's those people out there.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that while Wes is on camera though.
No. Yeah. I mean, he would rather I just let the dogs bark incessantly and drown out the interview.
Yeah. Fair.
That guy.
What a beast.
Speaking of that guy.
Yeah. Well, Roy, how are we though? Good.
You know what? Let's talk about Wes, man. You know I'm always the same. Had a great weekend. Let's segue right into the boy.
That's what I freaking like to hear, man. Well, before we segue, speaking of a segue, say a segue was coming out your car real fast and you had to ditch out of the way and you happened to hit a little pothole or something along the route and you got to go ahead into Danco Transmission and Auto Care. Danco Joe will hook you up. He'll get you fixed up. He'll be able to help you out. Just mention the BBP. Mention Chad, Ryan, Aaron, myself, and Danco Joe will hook you up. $10 off next fixing. 10% off 10% off next fixing, $10 off your next oil change if you head over to Danco Transmission and Auto Care. Tell them that BBP sent you. But yeah, that's a good segue, Ryan. Wes Miller, man. It's people always joke about the Friday news dump, the infamous Friday news dump. Chad, you've been in the industry long enough. You know it's a thing these days, the infamous Friday news dump. But this time it was the infamous get your weekend started early if you're a Bearcat fan news dump. And that's kind of exactly what happened. As early afternoon, Chad hits the board with a little bit of a, little gif, little gif, little meme, if you will. Gets the people thinking. And without further ado, Texas transfer, former 5-star, McDonald's All-American, Mount Baird Academy alum, averaging 10 and pretty much 10 and 8 in the Big 12. Big time NBA prospect, big time athleticism. That's right. Dylan Mitchell announces that he will be transferring to the University of Cincinnati, the Bearcats. Wes Miller. Cats are back, man. Whenever the national media grabs a hold of something like that, you know that it's a big time news. And Chad, Aaron, Ryan, I want to know where you were. Chad, I'm going to start with you. Where you were when you first got the news and in your initial first reaction, because yes, it's a massive, massive get.
So I was when I first got the news, or like when the news broke nationally. Those are two different answers.
Either way, because it's already out there and it's all sunshine and rainbows for now.
So I was packing, kind of getting ready to go to Indianapolis for EYBL for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I had some things going on. Get a phone call and got the news that he was committing, and I my first impression was, honestly, I thought he was going to go to Auburn. If we're in the trust tree here,
right?
I thought Auburn had the momentum,
Mm-hmm.
and my response was, for real? Wow, that's impressive. When did that happen? And then I was told that he had called the night before and let the staff know. I was pleasantly surprised because, and I had look like on Sean Stewart, I was told essentially we're not going to get him, and I was never told that on Mitchell. I was never given that like, hey, things aren't looking great conversation.
Right.
So that was just trying to read the tea leaves on where the momentum might be. Auburn recruited him heavily out of high school. Auburn had been having some trouble landing guys in the portal, so it felt like they were gonna do everything they could to make this one happen. So I was pleasantly surprised when I got the news. I went straight to the board and dropped a little hint that things were brewing, things were bubbling, good things were in the crosshairs. The crosshairs in the not in the rear view, no. in the main mirror, coming right at you. And then I got ready. I double checked. I was like, do we have any idea when this is going to go down? And I was told probably sometime this evening. It could be as late as Saturday morning. So I thought, okay, we're good. I can get in this car and get on my way to Indianapolis. And I got in the car and I got almost to the gas station, like 4 minutes from my house. And my phone started blowing up that it was out there. Yeah. So I had to pull in to the gas station, like go in and get some snacks and things for the road.
Right.
I sat in the car and navigated the commitment, and then rocked out a couple Twitter Spaces.
Mm-hmm.
At it, on the way to Indianapolis, as people were very excited, very happy about the news. So yeah, that's how it went down from my perspective. And then I will say, everybody that I saw in Indy, coaches, scouts, national media, it was the first thing that they brought up. Dylan Mitchell, damn, Wes got a roster. Wes is putting one together. Wes has got a squad. That was everybody. Danny Hurley, Jeff Goodman, a bunch of scouts, both college and NBA. Everybody, you got a pretty good get when everybody took notice that they landed Dylan Mitchell. So it was a big one. Everybody was very positive about the addition and what he would bring to Cincinnati.
A massive addition. Aaron, were you well aware of the happenings as they were going down? Were you busy? What was popping off for you? I mean, obviously this is he was 247 composite, the number 5 overall player in the class of 22. He's obviously a bona fide athlete. We're going to dive in a little bit more to the game and what he brings to the current roster, but just your initial thoughts as things started to transpire.
Well, Chad called me and wanted to know what I had going on because he wanted to go live. I was at Target because that's a trip for us, like a take a chunk out of your whole day.
You've mentioned the Target trip.
That's a 45-minute to an hour trip to get to Target. So
I think actually I told you earlier, right? When you texted, we talked about doing a nightcap breaking down the college football video game release, like the trailer. We were going to do that.
That's up Aaron's alley.
And that was right after I got the phone call. Aaron was like, "Hey, are we going to do this?" And I was like, "I'm working on rounding up stuff for the Dylan Mitchell commitment." And he was like, "To Cincinnati?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh shit." And that was about it.
Massive.
So we're getting things together because in case the baby ends up going early, we want to make sure that we have everything that we can have ready.
Mm-hmm.
So I was not in a place where I could just hop on live. Although I get far better reception in little old Lancaster than little old Athens. But yeah, I'm excited though about the addition. For me, I make no qualms about the fact that I'm into old school basketball, and this is about as old school basketball as you're going to get in today's
look. He has made
atmosphere.
He has made as many 3-pointers in his collegiate career as you, Aaron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As everyone on this show combined.
So that's right up your alley.
Yeah, I'm excited about high percentage shots. He doesn't make free throws at a very good percentage. So we have, he's already fitting right in with the rest of the roster. So we'll see about that. But I'm also excited about some of the things that Chad's talked about in various conversations on and off the air. The fact that he's mentioned by the people that Chad was talking to at this EYBL tournament as just a hell of a kid, both on and off the court, is something that not everybody's getting that said about them. And it feels like the additions that they have made this offseason between Hickman and Arlington Page and Dylan Mitchell now, it seems like these guys are all high quality, high character guys. And it seems like the basketball team is kind of following suit in the same way that the football team is. They're looking to add talent, but they're not looking to necessarily add talent with the sacrifice of what it could potentially cost them in the locker room. And when you're able to add both of those things at the same time in one player, I think that's just a home run win.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, you've gotten the skinny a bit on Dylan Mitchell. It's a massive addition. And in the transfer portal era, obviously you weigh things a little bit differently depending on, okay, well, he is 2 years removed from being one of the elite prospects in the country, but yet he still carries all those attributes, and he's had all this experience in the Big 12. It's got to be somewhat of a home run in your eyes as well.
Yeah, I saw the social media Bearcat Nation kind of freak out that we got this guy, and I didn't really know who he was, to be honest. And then I kind of talked to you guys about it and saw some clips of him playing, and just overall what I've kind of gathered is he seems like he's definitely going to help improve kind of the lacking inside offensive presence that we've been missing. I think he's going to add a lot of athleticism, and I think that's going to correlate both on defense and on offense. I think it's going to be huge to have another rim protector to kind of go along with Aziz. What are you going to do if you got him and Aziz out there at the same time, going up, just blocking shit from left and right? It's going to be hard for opposing teams to really get something set up inside. So I think that'll be good. But yeah, obviously, you know, the national reaction of us landing him is huge. So that makes me think like, oh, we did something good. But I think, you know, this is off.
To your point, my favorite is when you get to see John Rothstein just blaze on the Cincinnati Bearcats, because you know that's a hard pill for him to swallow.
Yeah, I saw his like roster breakdown tweet, and I was like, damn, we really do have a really good roster going into next year. Absolutely zero excuses now to get a little March action. Yeah, the good March action, not that NIT bullshit. You know how I feel about that.
The good March action. I'm going to take a step back and bring up two different things. You know, we mentioned all throughout the past, month and a half, 2 months on the BBP about just kind of like our dreams out of the portal and whatnot. And I remember one BBP, I said Dylan Mitchell, and just kind of throwing it out there. It's kind of that prototypical, highly athletic, defensive minded, still has room to develop offensively, but has tools and gifts that are unteachable, that are just God-given, that just enhances the team instantly. And just kind of threw it out there. And then again, a couple weeks ago, if you guys remember, we had that conversation, that debate. It was, would you rather get a healthy CJ Frederick for a full year, or like a legit backup big, Big 12 big? If you guys remember that conversation at all. Uh-huh. And Chad and I were on the CJ Frederick train. Aaron and Ryan were kind of saying, let's get that backup big. And then I said something along the lines of, Chad was like, well, what if it's Kalu Ezikpe is the backup? And I was like, no. But if it's like a Dylan Mitchell, then hell yeah, I'll take that. And why not both? If we're going to go gifts and memes, Chad, the why not both? So, it's
was that the same show that I mentioned Arlington Page? Because I know that I mentioned Arlington Page before he was even involved in conversations that I knew of.
Well, then get your flowers. But no, this was recently after Arlington had already committed.
Okay.
But yeah, it's pretty unbelievable development.
I mentioned Connor Hickman while he was still playing at Bradley.
I mean, I didn't have any inside news on Mitchell. It was just, I think it was before he even visited. It was just kind of a pipe dream, hope when you see someone just dunk as ferociously as he does and just soar through the air. You're like, gosh, I really wish he could see what he's like in a Bearcat uniform. But Chad, is this kind of just the Florida connection coming through that Chad's been able to? I mean, that Wes has been able to grow with Jizzle recruitment and other obviously connections that are Bearcat wise down there in Florida that kind of led to this pipeline, because it seems like this is going to start to be in a pipeline that's going to be tapped.
Yeah, I mean you see this from time to time where a team kind of gets hot within one particular AAU program, and that's kind of where we're at here. I mean, Mitchell played with the Florida Rebels, which is where Jizzle played as well. Watched them a couple times this weekend. Obviously, Jalen Reese, a name to watch in the next cycle, the 25 cycle, that has Florida Rebels ties. So, yeah, I mean, it's as we've talked about a million times, the guy that coaches their 17 and under team, Steve Reese, has deep-seated family ties in Cincinnati, and that kind of comes into play with building that relationship. And it didn't work on Stewart, but I mean, honestly, Mitchell is not far off from being like the same guy, but with 71 starts over 2 years for a Big 12 team that went to the Elite Eight his freshman year.
Yeah.
So, missing on Sean Stewart hurt, but they kind of got like a year older Sean Stewart afterwards.
I would say better version as well. If I'm really going apples to apples here.
He's definitely, I don't think there was a whole lot of difference if you would have talked Sean Stewart after his freshman season and Dylan Mitchell after his freshman season. I think there were similarities. Stewart just kind of got blocked at Duke,
right?
In terms of getting on the floor more. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think if you're asking whose game is more advanced right now,
right,
it would be Dylan Mitchell.
Yeah, the 38 freshman starts as well for that Elite Eight Texas team is just crazy. So, but yeah, it is wild to think like, oh, okay, the Sean Stewart thing goes through, and then all of a sudden you land Dylan Mitchell a few weeks later. It's a pretty impressive job by Wes.
And I can say this. I mean, they had Noah Waterman lined up if Mitchell did go to Auburn. And then I'm not going to say who because maybe I will eventually. But I think they had somebody lined up even after Waterman that was going through the draft process that the expectation is this player would come back. And it was, but for my money, the best player on a Power 5, Power 4 program. So, they had a plan. Like they had a work through on every possible scenario, and the wheel stopped at Dylan Mitchell, and I think everybody is thrilled that it did.
Let's take a look at the type of player that Dylan Mitchell is. First, Ryan, you mentioned the national media getting some some coverage here. I just clipped a couple of posts that they had. One was Mitchell is one of the best defensive prospects in the portal. Though his numbers haven't been flashy in the last 2 seasons, he finished top 25 in defensive BPR in the Big 12 in the last 2 seasons. His age and his 5-star high school recruiting profile also point to his still untapped potential in his upcoming junior season. Offensively, he's solid, averaged almost 10 points per game while shooting 60% from 2. So obviously room to grow. People love, great move for Cincinnati. Mitchell slots in probably at the 4, providing defensive and athleticism next to Aziz Bandaogo. You mentioned that, Ryan. Wow. Bearcats are now a top 25 caliber team. Strong returning guard duo and Day Thomas, Jizzle James, breakout star Daniel Skillings, wing shooter Connor Hickman. Strong team who should get better throughout the year. I dove into a few interviews that Dylan Mitchell had, through the draft process last year at the Combine and a couple of other team visits. And then also just, random interviews that he's taken. And they ask him, obviously who's some NBA players that you kind of craft your game after, that you kind of watch, and really intently try and see what you can grab from them. Most people would be like LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Anthony Edwards now, but he said Jimmy Butler and Jared Vanderbilt. Chad, when a player throws out kind of those particular niche players that are super aggressive, that play extremely hard, that kind of get everything out of their game possible, and also provide great defense on that side of the ball as well. It kind of like hearing that a little bit more than the cookie cutter answers that you could get.
Well, what it tells you is he understands who he is as a player. And that's, I was talking to a prominent national media member that knows Dylan Mitchell really well. And he said, that's kind of the thing with Dylan is he's really smart. He's got an understanding of who he is and what his path is to make money in the NBA. A lot of guys, let's just be honest about it. Everybody, like you said, almost everybody goes into the NBA thinking they're going to be Kevin Durant, LeBron James, like especially a consensus top 5 kid.
Right.
They think they're going into the league to be, 27 points a game and, this, that, and the other. When the reality of the situation is almost all of them, if they're going to stick in the NBA, are going to have a very specific identity, a very specific like assignment on who they are, what they're good at, and how they are getting from point A to point B. The thing with Dylan Mitchell is he has an understanding already in college of that identity. And that's big for a team because he's not coming in looking, obviously he wants to score as much as he can possibly score, but he's not coming in thinking he's going to be ball dominant. He's not coming in thinking I'm going to get 20 shots. He's coming in thinking I'm going to do what I know further enhances my profile as a player when it comes to getting to the next level. The biggest thing for me, Brent, the NBA wants to see if he can shoot.
Yeah.
And from everybody I've talked to around the Cincinnati program, he's going to have a chance to earn that. Now he's going to have to earn it. If he comes in and he can't shoot in workouts, he can't shoot in the team stuff that they do leading up to the season, he's not going to get a green light to shoot. But if he shows he's a competent shooter, they're going to say, take the open ones and we'll go from there. So, that's all part of this process.
I kind of going with the whole 3-point shooting thing is obviously something I've seen a lot about. And, he's only attempted 8 throughout his college career. And those 8 all came this past year. And how about
somebody even said he was credited with one in the Cincinnati game that he didn't take, that somebody else took. So he might have only taken 7.
There is one that's in the Cincinnati game. And the Cincinnati game was the 15th game of the season this past year for Texas. He attempted 7 of his 8 3-pointers on the year within those first 15 games. And then after that, looked to just contribute in different ways rather than trying to just, hunt a shot or things of that sort, which tells me that.
Now, to be fair, Brett, Texas was one of the lowest volume 3-point shooting teams in the country. And almost all of them were Max Asmus.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We all know that from firsthand, or Dylan Disu, if he just gets that little pick and pop, which just destroyed us. Damn Dylan Disu. But yeah, it just shows that it's a guy that understands his game, a guy that sees it. He in a lot of these pre-draft things that everything that they were talking about was the shooting. That's literally what they were all harping on. He said, I'm working on it every day. It's a confidence thing. I'm working on building the confidence. But he said, it's just I know my role at Texas. My role wasn't to be that 3-point shooter. It was to do things in different ways. So kind of an understanding of the role. And then also on top of it, he mentioned the fact that, he thinks his shot is good. He just, didn't find a chance to really kind of show that and get a rhythm or getting anything going. So, I mean, if you watch you mentioned
they weren't running stuff for him to shoot.
Right, exactly.
Let's call a spade a spade. He took 7 on the year. They weren't running anything for him to attempt a 3.
Right. So I thought it was funny you and Aaron having the back and forth about red light, green light, yellow light. It kind of was a whole scenario where, Aaron, I think some certain people had the ultimate green light, even though it was really a yellow light. But this one definitely looks right.
They thought they had a green light. It was a yellow light, but they played like it was green.
Right.
They ran the light.
That's how a lot of people drive. The yellow does not mean slow down. It means speed up.
That's how Seamus got hit by a car.
Exactly. No, slow down.
Good one. It was yellow. I thought, no.
Royer.
Damn it, Vic.
Royer. 21 points.
I'm having trouble hearing you guys. My Wi-Fi's acting up. What did you ask?
21 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, 1 steal against the UConn Huskies. What does that stat line say for you hearing that?
I mean, that's it sounds like a perfect game. Sounds like you're doing everything right against the national champions. I think it says everything that you'd ever want in a player.
Yeah, that's what Dylan Mitchell did this past
year. Keep it simple.
Yeah, It is pretty fascinating because you look at Mitchell and he's one of those guys where he's more. You want to say he's more of a 3 than a 5 when it comes to the 4-5 or the 4-3, but I mean the way that he rebounds, it's kind of similar. Chad, correct me if you think I'm wrong. It's kind of similar to the way that Dan rebounds for his kind of size and positional versatility. Is just like he's a next level rebounder out of his space.
When you have him, Dan, and Aziz on the floor, I don't know how anybody else gets a rebound.
Right.
Because they're not just great in area, they're great out of area with length, with athleticism. Go get the ball.
How much does that make up, though, for what Simas can't do rebounding, right? Like for him kind of ball watching or going down the court. I think that sets up well for Simas, actually, because otherwise you've got a crowded lane.
Well, actually, it sets up well in that point, and it also sets up well in this point. Now you just tell him put a body on somebody. Like, you don't even have to actively be going for the rebound. You just need to box out, and these 3 dudes are going to go get the ball because they can get it in area and out of area. So as long as you're able to locate and get a body on somebody, you're going to be a huge help. Like, you don't even have to get a body on somebody and, like, locate the ball if you're Simas anymore. Just go hammer somebody, give them one of these, and those 3 guys are going to get the rebound.
Just defensively, I think this sets up really well for guys who are a little deficient in defense that are probably going to be either starters or seeing significant minutes for guys like Simas, guys like Jizzle.
I think Jizzle's going to make a significant jump.
I agree. I agree. And I think that anything short of a significant jump defensively would be a disappointment. But I think that this is going to allow for some of those things to come along naturally instead of having to force it and either coming up with stupid fouls because of it or just trying to do too much and not concentrating on what you're good at. And now you got guys who are kind of taking some of that pressure off of you.
Well, it's what we talked about with Mo on Wednesday night. Who is going to be the John Newman replacement? Who was going to be that guy that you can say, 3s and 4s, it's a 3 and 4 league. Like the 3s and 4s in the Big 12 are as good as and better than any league in America. So if you've got a lockdown guy that you can put on the best wing forward on the other team, imagine if they had somebody that like Mitchell to guard Dylan Disu last year. That changes that game drastically.
Yeah.
So you've added the one piece that when we looked at this roster going into Friday was okay, where is that going to come from? Now you don't have to ask that question anymore. That question is answered. This guy's the metrics on him defensively are incredible.
It's the reason why he's still considered a draft prospect. One of the biggest things when it comes to the NBA draft that if you're not a shooter, you can't, haven't shown the ability to shoot, most teams will wipe you off the board. But when you add in certain attributes like athleticism, like next level athleticism, the ability to defend, ability to rebound, and then positional versatility, teams still look at you and they still are oogly-eyed at you. And that's exactly what Dylan Mitchell has. And to be honest with you, with how kind of weak this draft is this year in the NBA, I'm surprised Mitchell didn't try and push a little bit harder and see if some team would have kind of given him a talk to take a look at him at the end of the first round or even second round. And then obviously you run into that whole scenario about guaranteed contracts and this, that, and the other. But he seems like he's a prototypical body and an athletic prototype. For what it takes for the NBA. It's exactly what NBA teams look at. They're like, yes, give me that guy. Let's see what we can develop him into. And that's exactly what Wes has. It's incredible. It really is.
Yeah, give me a Sean Kemp style guy any day.
People consider him the best dunker in the entire college basketball.
I just called him Sean Kemp.
I mean, he finished 80% at the rim last season, 76% at the rim in the Big 12.
I feel like we finished about 58.
Right. That was one of the things, like that's one of the biggest areas that I think that he increases this team. It was so frustrating, not just the finishing at the rim, but the finishing on second chance. Like they were one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country, and they couldn't get fucking second chance points. Time and time again, they'd have 13 offensive rebounds and 9 second chance points. Like there's 6, 8, 10 points a game you left on the floor in a game that was decided by 3 points. So not only his ability to finish in transition, now you want to talk about fun. Now you have 2 of the most efficient finishers in the country in transition on your team. Dan Skillings, Dylan Mitchell, and 2 point guards that can get from end to end as fast as anybody in the country. So Day-Day and Jizzle running straight down the middle of the floor with Mitchell and Skillings on the wings. You're going to have a chance to be deadly in transition.
They don't figure out how to lob in the offseason. I'm going to pull all of this hair out.
Don't do that. That's a lot of hair.
Yeah, that would take like, I mean, you talk about the length of these subathons, man. Jeez, that would be.
Brent, could you imagine just every night he shows up with a different patch of hair pulled out?
You guys didn't think I would do it, did you?
I'll show you. I'll show all of you.
Golly.
And you're crazy enough to do it.
Watch this. But no, it's you know, Chad.
We'd have to do live streams of games just to watch Aaron work on a section. Like tonight, it's top left.
You know what? There might be
the hardest bracket.
It is. It always is.
Every year.
Everybody knows
every year. I mean, there might be some additional subscribers that are like into that sort of thing. Like it's like a soothing mechanism for them or something. Just seeing someone pull their hair out. I mean, I don't know.
You're a big fetish guy tonight.
Oh, am I?
There might be people that are into that sort of thing.
I mean, who knows? You don't know these days, man. You don't know these days. I'm also a little delirious, but hey, you know what? I'm freaking thrilled about Dylan Mitchell. I tell you what.
I don't want to know what's going on down in Florida. I just don't.
I'm back up in Indy, man.
I was at the office.
I did the old fly up this morning.
Are you living in the office now? You got a bed on the other side of the screen?
I do actually. I'll you know what? Hit me up if you want. Hit my DMs. Send a $5 buy-in, and I'll give you a tour of the office bed.
That's inappropriate.
I'm joking. I'm completely joking. But Tim Prince 3 asking about Day now, which is I'm not going to touch on that because as Chad always says, unless he's got some sort of an update, as Chad always says, it's the injury conversations are above our pay grade. So.
I mean, everything I know about that, and I put this on the board, everything I know is he's expected to be back for the start of workouts in June. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean live for contact because there's not you're not doing a bunch of team stuff in June. Right. So, but he is expected to be back for individuals and skill development in June, which is that's what you want.
Yep. But bringing up Day now brings up the next question is just the amount of different lineups that you could now concoct with adding just one big piece like this is pretty outstanding. I mean, the initial thought, and Chad, you and I were talking about this before you hopped on the Twitter spaces, was, you go with what you would think would be, Jizzle, Dan, Seamoss, Mitchell, and Aziz, which first off would match the length of any team in the country, would certainly match the athleticism of any team in the country, and would definitely, if you get Dan and Jizzle to take a little bit of step up with their 3-point shooting, this would be a killer lineup defensively, and then have just enough on the offensive end to absolutely stick into games. And then all of a sudden you've got all this shooting and the additional defense with Day off the bench as well. It's going to be fascinating to see the different lineups that that come out of after the addition of Dylan Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be in a position where you're always going to have one high level shooter on the floor, be it CMOS, be it Hickman, be it CJ. A lot of this will depend, Jizzle, Dan, and even Day, like how far do they advance as shooters? If they can go from 28, 29, 30 to like 32, 33, 34, now your spacing is great. Your ability to attack, that's another thing I think that's lost on Mitchell is outstanding straight line driver.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the 3-point line to the 3-point shot to play off of yet, where he's like attacking closeouts, but his athleticism is such that if he catches a pass downhill and he's going towards the rim, you better be in front of him as soon as he catches it, because if not, he's blowing by you and finishing in the half court. So you're right. Just marginal improvement. Doesn't even have to be significant. You don't need him to be 36, 37, 38% from three. Right. If they are 33, 34% pretty consistently, then, you're in a place where offensively this team can really take a step.
Mm-hmm. Aaron, what kind of a lineup can you imagine throwing out there with, now that Mitchell's in the fold?
I don't see how a guy who started 70 plus games for Texas isn't starting. So let's just say that. I also don't really see a starting five that doesn't have Aziz returning as your starting center. So I think that there's your 4 and 5. I would believe that CMOS is arguably your best player, and if he's not, it's probably Dan Skillings. Mm-hmm. Don't see you having a lineup without both of them in it. So figure out what you're doing with playing one at the 2 and one at the 3. I'm going to guess that you're probably going to see some shooting guard minutes for Dan Skillings this season, albeit you haven't. But I just don't see anybody else on this roster who you can start over either of those two guys. Honestly, over any of the 4 that I've already mentioned. I guess you could make arguments. I just don't think they'd be very good. And I
think the interesting argument here would be CMOS as like 6th man of the year in the league. Like if you committed to him, like you're going to lead the second team, hypothetically. I'm with you. I think he will start. But I'm just throwing this out there as a possibility. Like, let's say you started Jizzle, Hickman, Dan, Mitchell, Aziz. And CMOS, you tell him, you're coming in 3 minutes into the game. Like,
well, I guess at the same time, who are you pulling off? You're probably pulling, out of those 5, you're probably pulling Hickman off. And I don't know that you're going full hockey subs and bringing in 5 new guys. Maybe you're shuffling some positions and stuff. But I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, when I consider my starting 5, they're the guys that I want to see get the most minutes. And I'd also put Jizzle James in that situation, because I think he's shown us enough that you can't cede minutes necessarily, the lion's share of minutes to Day over Jizzle next year. I don't believe.
Here's Brent, I'll ask you, here's the one flaw in my argument. Generally, when you do that, right, when you have a guy like a CMOS that you bring off the bench, like early, like quick, like second whistle, You're bringing a guy off the bench, he is replacing somebody that probably isn't starter quality, quote unquote.
Which of those that you mentioned would probably be Hickman. So then you're right back where I had already mentioned. So I guess I don't understand why you would do that as opposed to just starting
CMOS. Right. And then bringing Hickman as your offense off the bench, like 4 or 5 minutes into the game at the under 16 or
for a breather or
whatever the case may be. Yeah. It's fascinating the number of directions you can go. You can genuinely, you can go long, you can go big, you can go small, you can go shooting. Like you can, in reality, fast, right? Like, you could have Hickman, CJ, like Hickman at the 1, CJ at the 2, Seamoss at the 3 or the 4, and you've got 3 deadly shooters on the floor. If a team tries to zone you, you know, if a team's throwing a junk defense at you and you want 3 guys that not just are great shooters, but are elite offensive skill players.
Mm-hmm.
You can go defense. I mean, Day, Dan, Mitchell, and Aziz on the floor at the same time.
Yeah. Right.
Good luck. Good luck.
You're
going to have to run great offense to beat out that unit defensively. So that part is fun, especially as we now are at May 20th and the roster is set and we don't have a game until November.
Right.
Part of the fun of this offseason is going to be talking about all the different combinations and all the different ways they can use the roster.
And when you looked at the roster heading into the season last year, you saw 4 7-footers and you said, wow, look at this big boy length. Look at this, it's going to be Twin Towers night in, night out, and, in the Queen City. But it ended up being a little bit, kind of, I don't know. I thought the experiment kind of had some positives. It also had some negatives. The ability to defend a 4-man in college basketball seems to be one of the highest level of, importances when it comes to the entire game. The positional versatility, what you took away when you had 2 bigs on the floor. The lack of athleticism at that 4 spot was a little obvious at times, and to the point where the fan base was clamoring to go small. Well, the Bearcats going small last year with Seamoss at the 4, Dan at the 3. That's what pretty much every team in the country does. So,
Dan was really though at the 2. Like Newman was the 3.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. I'm kind of saying like for this upcoming year.
I know. I'm just saying. Yeah.
Right. So now you bring in Mitchell, who is the perfect example of that 4. Obviously the perfect example would be some shooting touch, but that we've already touched on that.
Well, but the versatility to be able to give you minutes at the 3 and give you minutes at the 5, while his primary position is the 4, usually you need 2 guys to do that.
Yeah.
Usually you need a 4-5 combo and a 3-4 combo, and you're getting that in one guy. He played a decent amount of small ball 5 with Texas. Now, that was usually with, Disu and Shedrick were on that roster. When he was on the floor with Disu, he would play the 5 and Disu would play the 4. Right. So they still had 2 bigs out there. You know what? This has not been talked about much. You know what I'm excited about?
What's that?
The rotation with Mitchell and AP.
Right.
At the 4 and the 5.
Right.
Like, that is 2 high level, high end, high upside recruits that are, coming into their own, and they're long, they're athletic. AP's got some skill. Mitchell has some of that dog in him. He's got that dog in him. I think that's going to be one of my more fun rotations to watch, is when you have those 2 on the floor simultaneously.
Well, because then AP has shown that shooting touch, has shown the ability to kind of get out and knock down, a deeper mid-range jumper or all the way out to the 3-point line. So then that spacing is there with that lineup as well. And, the whole thing for me as well is, and I've mentioned it in numerous different ways, and in the transfer portal era, it's going to be the most, it's just blatantly obvious, is sometimes just a simple change of scenery, even if you did well at your previous spot, sometimes that's all you need to kind of just really untap your potential, really reach that confidence profile. If you're put in a situation where everyone's positively working towards, wow, you could be special. I mean, that's what you hear all of these players talk about whenever they're on, in an interview. You saw Dan Skillings talk about it at the baseball game when he was there for the first pitch. You saw numerous different people just say, there's a special feel You know, the vibes are really high. That could just take this old top 5 overall player and really just unlock everything and untap confidence and push them forward to a level that hopefully we all are able to see, because it's all lining up. Stars are aligning.
Now, can we have the uncomfortable conversation?
I'm always ready to get uncomfortable.
This might be the best UC roster in, I don't know, 7 years, 8 years, 10 years, 15 years.
Okay.
They're probably going to be picked like 6th or 7th in the Big 12. Like, if you look at the preseason predictions, at least where we're at as of right now, and that most of these teams have. Did you see what came out today? What Kansas is trying to do?
Is it Jackson Robinson or
Javon Small?
Oh, really?
They're trying to flip him from West Virginia because essentially everybody's still a free agent until you attend classes at your new school. Yep. And even then, nobody has talked about this yet, but even then, even after you attend summer classes.
Can't you transfer mid-year too?
No. Once you play, you can't.
Okay.
You can transfer, but you can't play in the same season.
But
the
before that,
closed.
Yeah.
You could go somewhere else and sit a year and make a massive amount of NIL. I don't know why teams would do that, but it's possible. Kansas is making a play on Javon Small to get him from West Virginia because they think they could use him. And he's technically still a transfer because he hasn't enrolled in classes at West Virginia, or he hasn't attended a class at West Virginia yet.
This is why they need a union and contracts.
That's why you need collective bargaining so that there's safeguards. Yeah. But this is good for the players, Aaron, because he could just be like, well, you have to double what West Virginia is giving me if you want me to come. And Kansas could be like, okay, sounds fair. Sure.
What about triple? You want triple?
But back to my original point, you have 4 potential top 5 teams.
Yeah.
And Kansas, Baylor, Houston, Iowa State. Those 4 teams are all in play for the top 5. Arizona is in play for the top 10. Yeah. So I jokingly was talking to somebody inside the program, and they asked me what I thought, and I said, top 15, top 20?
Well, and they're I would say Cincinnati was already a top 25 mention.
In that range,
honorable mention bubble team before adding Dylan Mitchell. And you add a guy like Dylan Mitchell who clearly takes you to a different level. And I think that somewhere in that top 15, top 20 is about accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they were like, that's it? Like joking around. They were like, that's all, that's that. And I'm like, Coach, 1, 3, 4, 5.
I think it's enough to make them the best team in the city.
Gary Parrish came out with his top 25 and 1.
Yeah.
Xavier was 24, Cincinnati was 25.
Numerous people have that, which just boggles my mind. But that's a different combo for different times.
Look, they added what they're good at, and that's offense. They added a bunch of shooting and spacing and offense. They don't have any rim protection. Their defense is going to be a question, but they're gonna score.
Right.
With that unit that they have, they're gonna score. So I get it, and there's a lot of respect for Sean Miller as a coach. He is a very good coach that deserves top 25 rankings and praise. He just doesn't deserve top 4 rankings because, the guy's been doing it for 20 years and he can't make a Final Four.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, it's true.
Shots fired.
Sure, Xavier fans.
Sure can sweat through a t-shirt though. That's
he can't drive to the top 24, 20 or the top. He can't drive to the Final Four in a Buick. He can't get there in a Lexus. He went back to the Buick. He still can't get there.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I'm kidding. Sean is a great coach. So they get the respect that you get, unless you walk past my daughter and you mean mug her, and then she wants to fight you.
Well,
can't imagine where she got that type of an attitude from.
She was ready. She was down to scrap, huh?
Oh, she was ready to go.
Let's throw hands.
She was ready to go. Did you hear that story, Royer?
I can't. I don't know what's going on with you guys like cut out every like half things you guys say. I'm gonna try. Here, hold on. I'm gonna try to fix my Wi-Fi really quick. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I don't know if you can hear me. I'm just gonna.
We can hear you. We can hear you. Anyhow, I'll tell the story later. It was funny. It was a good.
I think Royer's really offended with your Sean Miller comments. It just
yeah, he was
took him over the edge. But yeah, no, it's obviously a huge addition.
They're both going to be good. They're both going to be good.
Yeah, and it's also I think there's everyone is so excited. Everyone looks at the core that Cincinnati is bringing back 6 of the 8 top scorers, different starters. The only thing they lost was John Newman. Obviously, Victor Locken had his struggles towards the latter half of last season. So really, they're not losing too much other than Newman, and then you kind of see how exciting all that is. But you do take a step back. And I am most excited to hear, especially during these offseason workouts, and then in the beginning of next season, what kind of jump Jizzle did make? What kind of is Dan ready to do to be that guy? We'll see Moss continue the second half of what he was doing last year.
And here's the crazy thing, Brent. Like we'll have an idea, like you'll get a better idea in practice, in workouts, but the Big 12 is the Big 12, dude. You're not going to know until December, until late December, going into January. Like you're not going to have a great idea of where all this stands until you get into the wars. And here's the thing that not a lot of people are mentioning.
Right.
West did position this roster to withstand some of the natural attrition that happens in a league like this. Yeah. Now, can you, if you're the New York Knicks, perfect example. They had 5 guys, 5 of their, they were deep.
Mo called that, by the way. He called that. If they lost game 6, they were going to lose game 7 too.
Well, he didn't call Jalen Brunson breaking his hand in game 7.
He didn't, but he still called the outcome.
Being,
Pacers played a perfect game.
What you have to do, after going through 1 year of watching it, what you have to do in this league is safeguard yourself as much as possible against that just weekly grind. That understanding that a guy's going to miss a game, a guy's going to miss 2 games, a guy's going to miss, 28 minutes in one night because he turns his ankle. He might be ready for the next game, but you lose him for those 28 minutes in that game. And you've got a roster that's 8, 9, 10 deep already with known commodities, and then a couple really talented unknown commodities at the back of your bench. I like the way this is set up, but in this league, man, there's not a lot. You could be projected 6th, have a good season, and finish 10th.
Yeah, easily.
Because there's just 1 or 2 games difference. Instead of going 11 and 9,
look at Texas this past year.
Yeah,
they were projected to be right up there at the top of the Big 12, and you know what? They kind of struggled. I think they're horns down now. But yeah, it's a situation where you want them to start clicking at the right time, and that right time is tough to find because obviously the Big 12 is just we mentioned it year in year out. And Aaron sent me the tweet before we hopped on about how it's not only is it going to be the Big 12, but it's going to be a gauntlet of the Big 12. It's going to be a nonstop, no rest,
no bye weeks.
No bye weeks. You are 2 games a week. You are traveling across the country. Hopefully they space those out a little bit. They're gonna, send you to Arizona and then all the way over to UCF in the same week. But you don't know. It's gonna be a little grueling. It's gonna be a lot. And there's I don't know if they'll change the days, obviously, but there weren't any Sunday Big 12 games, so it's gonna be that that Tuesday, Saturday, that big Monday after a Saturday. It's going to be a lot of games where every single night there's no nights off. But when you have this roster, like Chad mentioned, with the attrition and with the ability to kind of like the craziest thing to me about this roster, Aaron, because you're the one that's on screen with me right now.
You're right.
is that there are 2 high level freshmen that are coming into the program, and then 1 high level redshirt freshman that used a full season of training within the program to get his legs underneath him and kind of find tweak his game. And none of those guys are getting mentioned at all in these rotations. And yes, I get the whole it's hard for freshmen to find their footing in the Big 12 and different things of that sort. But these are 3 high-level players, high-level prospects that, they don't get much mention, but they can produce if given the opportunity and if they really start to show some things to the staff, especially during the offseason, especially during
out of conference.
those practices leading up to the Big 12 and out of conference play. So that just speaks to the depth of this team. It speaks to how hilarious it is to think of, the doom and gloom that old Ross team was tweeting about. Aaron, you kind of talked about how he's giving everyone the flowers these days. It is quite the turnaround and quite the roster that has been able to be formed, especially because Wes seems to really have this kind of archetype that he wants to throw out there.
Brent, let's make it. Let's put it in kind of simple terms.
Yeah.
You traded John Newman, Odi Oguama, Vic, Jamil, and Sage.
Yep.
For Connor Hickman,
mm-hmm.
Arrington Page.
Yep.
Dylan Mitchell.
Yeah.
Tyler Betsy, and Tyler McKinley.
Wow.
I will take that every time.
Unbelievable trade.
I will take that every time. The roster got better. That's the job of the portal, right? The job of the portal is to take the bottom of your roster and churn it into guys that can impact the top of your roster. Right. This year, they didn't need what they needed last year. Last year, they needed top of the roster because they lost, they lost David DeJulius, they lost Landers Nolly, and they lost Jeremiah Davenport, and they lost Mike Adams-Woods, and 6 of your top 7 scorers or whatever it was, 5 of 7, whatever.
Yeah,
they lost a lot of the top of the roster, and so they had to go hit with guys that they brought in, like starter level guys. Mm-hmm. Now the assignment was a little different. If you can go get a starter, go get a starter. But if not, go get guys that are going to impact significantly your depth and your bench and your skill and your shooting and your athleticism and your length. And they kind of somehow threaded the needle for all of those things while also bringing in 2 top 75 level high school recruits.
Yeah.
At one of the tougher positions to recruit, the 4 or the 5, the 4 or 5, like that combo guy. So if you're grading the offseason, A+.
Yeah.
A++. Is there an A++? Can we do A++?
We can throw out an A++, especially because we mentioned earlier, and I already talked about this earlier. It was like a fully healthy CJ Frederick, or that backup, 4 or 5 that has had some experience, Big 12 type experience. It is like Dylan Mitchell was a pipe dream at that point. It was it was a name that it was out there. They had him. Wow. Well, Wes saved his home run until the 8th inning. How about that? We'll touch on that here shortly. But he saved that big shot until it mattered most. And the crazy thing was Aziz was a late addition in the portal last year. Mitchell, a somewhat, I guess, late addition, if you will, just timeline wise. But these are just it's a phenomenal ad, and it's one that speaks volumes to what is being built because Chad, you also mentioned the fact that yes, they brought in all these guys last year, but Wes has to be one of the best at retaining what they brought in.
Yeah.
Seamus could have easily turned in what he did last year into, I want to be the number one guy on a Power 5 team with no one else around me. Just let me go out and score.
Look at AJ Storr from Wisconsin. He went somewhere.
Right.
Got a bag.
Yep.
Was a all Big Ten performer, and then went and got a double bag in year 2. And trust me, Seamus had interest. There were people behind the scenes that wanted him in the portal. There were people behind the scenes that wanted Jizzle in the portal. There were people behind the scenes that wanted Dan in the portal. Like, those things were all very prominent, with teams throwing a lot of zeros and crooked numbers at them. And they stayed. Like, that has to be like a consideration. It has to be something you talk about, because guess what? A lot of guys in a lot of those same situations, they left. They left the school that they were at and went somewhere new.
Yep. Wes Miller, man. Wes Miller. Ryan, you brought it up. You said Wes Miller, the man. You said let's segue in there. We segued all the way in. And gosh, we are about to segue out here shortly. But gosh, are you back, Ryan? Are you fully engaged?
We'll see. I think the roommates are using all their devices, so we're running into some Wi-Fi problems here, but we're gonna work through it.
Hey, well, adversity, man, adversity. But it's an awesome time right now to see what now the offseason can do, and obviously Coach Rayfeld gets his hands on the players now, is able to kind of figure out the different avenues that they need to improve upon. But it also seems like all these guys are hard ass workers too. They are in the gym constantly posting vids. It's a team that wants to get better together collectively, and it's gonna be a thrill to watch. A thrill.
First off, Craig, thank you for listening today. 15:30, but I appreciate it. And then, is there an instance where I reveal some of the teams trying to pull Bearcats into the portal, or will that be kept close to the vest? Maybe if you catch me out at like the Holy Grail, having a couple pops, you might be able to get that information out of me. But I don't think it does any good to do it this week, like in public. What am I doing this weekend? I'll be in Kansas City for the Nike EYBL. So come find me.
I was at the grill this weekend, Chad.
If you make it all the way to Kansas City and you ask me, I'll tell you. I might tell you that the place that did it might be close for one of those guys.
Oh.
I mean, handshake lines are an interesting recruiting tool. Meet you at Joe's barbecue. Oh man. That legit was the best barbecue I've ever had.
That was good. Really good.
Oh my God. It was so good. It was so good. Ryan. Like burn ends, unlike any other burn end I've ever had. A lot of people they burn the shit out of their burn ends. Like, they focus so much on that, like getting that outer crust on it, that like it's hit or miss.
You're telling me it's better than turkey tips from Alabama Q?
Turkey tips from Alabama Q are delicious. There is a reason the burn ends at Joe's are world famous.
But are they hand delivered by Mitch Marotti in the back of a Sprinter?
No.
Come on.
If you lived in Kansas City, they might be.
Yeah.
And then you might get a dap up in the handshake line.
Turkey tips from Alabama Q. How about that? Is that a
Brent?
No. Is that
a former Bearcat
Campfire Ground special?
No. It's right on Shortvine.
Oh, okay.
It's a former football player. Yeah, it's right by Top Cats. It's a former football player that has a barbecue joint that is delicious.
I tell you what, every time I go on Shortvine or whatever it is, I never find myself looking at any of the food establishments. It's always just
okay. So here's what you got to do. You go get the food first,
right,
and get the base, either Alabama Q,
right,
or my favorite place to eat in the city, Island Fridays. Those two spots are unbelievable, and they're both run by former Bearcat football players.
Boom, baby.
Have you had Cincy steak and lemonade, Chad? I like that spot.
Yeah, I like it. I don't think they have a great cheesesteak. I think they have a good cheesesteak.
Yeah, it's solid.
It's solid.
Spicy chicken cheesesteak's pretty good.
Yeah, it's solid. It's solid. If you've actually had like real like cheesesteaks, like Philly style, like legit Philly cheesesteaks, it's not that. The lemonade is awesome. Like Cincy steak and lemonade is very good. I have Alabama Q and Island Fridays in a different tier, like a tier up here, and then Cincy lemonade is in the next tier.
Yeah, well there we go.
My favorite place on Short Vine, I believe, is closed.
Which?
The Cupboard. Long live the Cupboard.
I know. When did that shut down?
They started a liquidation sale like 2 months ago. And they were getting rid of everything, which I can only imagine what crazy shit is included in the everything.
Oh, are you talking about the place right by Ladder?
The head shop. No. It's on the other side of the concert place. The Cupboard, the head shop, the weed place with the bowl, like the old school, like they had the hookahs and the bongs and the sex toys and all kinds of shit. The Cupboard.
The hell?
You've never been to the Cupboard, Royer?
That's on the side of what's it called?
Yeah, but
that's Ladder, on the same side, right?
But that's way far. That's 3/4 of a block farther down.
Oh, okay, yeah, I thought you meant it was opposite of.
No. It's on the other side of the concert place, Bogart's.
Yes, I got you.
Yeah, the Cupboard was legendary when I was a kid because, like, now there's head shops everywhere. Like, there's smoke shops all over. The Cupboard, like, when we were kids, like, you went to the Cupboard or you didn't. Like, that was the only option. you weren't going anywhere else.
Yeah.
Not that I ever partook in those things. It was for tobacco. Tobacco use only. Jeremy said, I can't even imagine what shit was in that store to liquidate. Exactly, Jeremy. Exactly. Ladder, street, tattoo shop, Bogart's, the Cupboard. That's kind of how it goes if you're going backwards. But apparently it's closed. I think I don't know if it's officially like done, but I know like a month ago they're having a liquidation sale. That was one of the great places of our youth in the 90s. Anywho.
Well, you know what? Maybe the liquidation involved a little New Riff, little New Riff whiskey. Should we timestamp this and then dive?
We have to timestamp it, and the heads up to my guy Nick. They re-upped. They're back in. So we're continuing our partnership with our guys at Quick Paper Supply, your local and family-owned restaurant supply company for all your non-food products. They service over 150 restaurants with weekly low minimum next day deliveries, providing a wide range of food service products from to-go containers, cups, custom printed products, eco-friendly, and much more. They also have cleaning and restroom supplies for all your janitorial needs. Call Nick 513-470-2029 and reference Bearcats for 20% off your first month of purchases. This is not going to be good. I've got radio. I had radio for 3 hours today. Then this. I have radio for 3 hours tomorrow. I don't know that my voice is going to make it.
What are you going to be hitting tomorrow?
Flu game chat.
I think we have to start having some like uncomfortable Reds conversations.
Yeah, about like the season might be washed.
Well,
before you reach,
there's a segment out there. There's a segment out there that like David Bell can't be placed at fault because of the injuries and because of the he doesn't have half of his starting lineup. There's a wave of belief that like he is not at fault for the Reds underperforming. Guess what? You can't get new players because you've got all young players that you're not trading or recycling or like you're stuck with these guys. So if you can't get rid of the manager, you can't change leadership at the top, and you can't change the players, then the answer is to turn around and bend over for the next 4 months. It's not. I don't know. It's not. Fans don't love that.
Well, at least they got Ellie,
and Hunter Green. They've both been great. And Nick Lodolo, but he's out with a mysterious injury and has been skipped in another start. So, yeah.
Well, if things keep going sour, you can always just turn to your good friend, New Riff, tasty bourbon and whiskey, tasty whiskey, the distillery, tasty. Which obviously
it is not whiskey, it is bourbon.
It's bourbon, yeah. That's right.
Look,
bourbon.
Indiana boy.
Bourbon whiskey.
Bourbon. Kentucky bourbon.
Bourbon.
We don't like to call it whiskey. We did bourbon here.
I got you. A little bourbon. Little bourbon. Well,
fiercely independent and unabashedly innovative, Brent. New Riff provides award-winning bourbon, rye whiskey, and gin at their distillery in Newport, Kentucky. The Aquafire Tasting Room, located on the 3rd floor of the distillery, features cocktails, flights, and pours of New Riff's entire line of spirits, including rare, limited edition, and distillery exclusive releases. Bearcat Journal listeners can save 50% on distillery tours when you use the code Bearcats24. For more information or to book a tour, visit newriffdistilling.com. Riff it up, baby.
Riff it up now, boy.
Here we go. How many wins do you think the new transfers, being Hickman, Page, and Mitchell, will be responsible for when it's all said and done next year?
That's a great question. Because
are we saying
go ahead,
one scenario is without them and the other scenario is with them?
Yes.
Oh man, a whole lot of wins.
Or let's say more wins from this year.
So here's what makes
I
it
think
tough,
that's a better way to go at it.
I think the development of your main 3 guys, Jizzle, Dan, Seamoss, will be more responsible for increased wins than those 3 guys. But
keep in mind the team finished 22-15 last year. For those listening,
with what? 2 wins, 2 NIT wins, added to that, so they had 20 coming out of the Big 12 tournament. If you take those 3 guys off the roster, which is I think what you're getting at,
7-11 in conference, by the way.
Yeah, 7-11 in conference. And now you have 20 conference games as opposed to 18.
Good insanity.
Need more Big 12 conference games to make it easier.
Yeah, can we get to 22? How about 24? Like, can we just do round robin with 15 teams, 16 teams? So that's 30, and then the crosstown shootout would make 31, and that would be your season. 30 Big 12 games and 1 crosstown shootout rivalry game.
Would you alternate that with the Dayton game at Heritage Bank?
I'll go 4, Ryan. I think they win. If you didn't have those guys on the roster at all, to having those guys on the roster, I'll set the over under like at 3.5 and take the over.
So does that mean they finished 26 and 11, Chad?
I'm just talking about looking at the roster for this year, looking at the schedule for this year. What would the record be with them? What would the record be without them? Okay. I say they'll impact 4 wins.
Yeah, I think. Obviously, with them, yeah, I think I'll go over if it's at 3.5. I'll even go over it's at 4.5 too. I just think obviously those 3 additions are just massive, especially Hickman and Mitchell being ready to go right now with loads of experience and and having pieces of their game that are, directly translate to success, shooting and scoring for Hickman and of course defense and rebounding for Mitchell. So I'd say 5.
I'd say double digits because without them you have Aziz and Tyler McKinley running your 5.
Right.
That's
I
think for this question to be valid, you'd have to have like just an average player. Like I throw a Jameel in there, back in there, or something.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like
I should have worded it in last year's team.
Yeah,
that's what I should have said. My bad.
I think
that's fine.
I think
just
it's
answering the question as
a
it is.
Step up.
But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with everybody else. I think that this is a huge jump. Are there fireworks going on downtown? Is that what's happening?
I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
It's not. I wouldn't be surprised if there's sometimes people go down by the river and just shoot off hundreds of fireworks just on their own doing.
I'm just happy I was like I thought I was like tweaking over here, like just like. I was like, am I hearing this? I almost said twerking. Yeah. I almost said twerking.
Oh, that's funny.
Craig says there are fireworks downtown. We know, right. Craig. We know. We are well aware. They're either fireworks or like mortar shells going off downtown.
Going off at timed intervals.
That's why I muted and stopped my cam because I was like, is that going on at like my location or what's going on?
But yeah, I'm with everybody. I think that these are significant. These aren't just your average replacements that you've replaced. There is no question that
win above replacement. They are win above replacement players, Aaron.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I mean, and I hate advanced analytics because
I know.
I'm again old school, but I don't know. It's just I think that they significantly upgraded at all of these positions, and I am really, really excited. I hate that it's May, and I'm probably more excited for basketball than I am for football right now. And I'm excited for football. That's not to take anything away from football, because I think that this team has a chance at football to go bowling. But I'm far more excited for basketball to get back going.
You know what I love, Brent? That Aaron is a proclaimed math nerd. He loves math and hates analytics, which is just the love of math.
Well, I think he likes. He's a lover of simple math, plus subtraction.
Can you imagine when those kids bring home core math from school now?
Aaron help just the kids with
them out.
Brent, no, why did you just?
I help the kids with their homework all the
time. He's a fan of plus.
I had to fix it mid-sentence. You see,
plus minus.
I almost said plus minus, but I said plus subtraction.
You can't make fun of it as simple-minded math and call it plus.
I think Ryan could attest to this, though. There's a very big difference between mathematics and statistics.
They're very correlated, but mathematics you go down a lot. Like statistics really just stays in the realm of multiplication and division is a lot of the operations for the formulas, but then there is some basic level calculus and stats, but when mathematics you can go down a huge rabbit hole when calculus gets down to what's it called? Differential equations, 3-dimensional calculus, that kind of stuff is a little bit more complex.
And that's where we went from plus minus to the smart portion of this podcast. You're welcome.
You're the one that likes the plus minus, man.
I
aced all my math classes. We're all good.
I was getting Ryan involved. It's all good. What you got?
Oppenheimer stuff.
Ryan's a smart cookie down there. He's definitely a mathematical, analytical guy. So
look, sometimes Royer is working on such high classified stuff at GE that he has to call us and be like, "I'm out tonight." If I show up for this podcast, I might have to have you all killed.
We can say that, yeah.
We could say that, yeah. Yeah.
That's
accurate.
I'll go with the second question. Is kind of staying on this basketball thing. Who do you think is going to be the most? Week. Yeah. Who do you think is going to be the most impactful of the three big name transfers? Hickman, Mitchell, and Page.
It has to be Mitchell, right? It has to. Like a guy with that level of experience, with that pedigree, I would be shocked if it's not. But I think Hickman is going to surprise people with how good he is playing in this league.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, the Bearcats literally just added an NBA prospect, like legit on NBA radars. I think if he flashes a little bit, shows a little shooting touch, and the same attributes that he had before, then he will be an NBA player. So when you add that, it's pretty much a no-brainer. But I agree. I think Hickman will have some games where he single-handedly won the game for Cincinnati. And I'm it's a plethora of riches, embarrassment of riches, if you will.
AP is also going to have some games, I think, where you're like, damn, he was good. He was really good. Go ahead, Aaron. Sorry. Go ahead. My bad.
I was
That's
just
your guy. I'm sorry. That's your guy. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say that I think he's going to be a surprise for people, because I think he's going to see more than the Odie minutes that we saw a year ago. And I don't know that people were quite expecting that out of him when they saw his name in the portal. But I think the coolest thing about Dylan Mitchell is I think he's going to elevate so many more players around him that I know I joked about Dan getting out over his skis when he said that he didn't plan on being at Cincinnati after this year. I think when you add a guy like Dylan Mitchell, you already put who has the NBA radar on him. I think that just kind of quantifies the radar on Dan Skillings that much more. I think for Jizzle, you have an opportunity to elevate your game as well because you have a guy like Dylan Mitchell on the roster and playing beside you. But I think that's where guys like Connor Hickman can come in and get some sneaky shots that they weren't necessarily going to get otherwise, because of the way that this team's going to be able to space now, and something that we weren't able to say with as much confidence a week ago.
Well, Aaron, what was this team like? What was one of the things that you wanted to pull your hair out about this team last year? They got open shots and didn't make them. More often than not, if you give Connor Hickman a kick out for a wide open three, it's going in.
Well, and if you have a healthy CJ Frederick playing, healthy CJ Frederick playing as well. I mean, that changes some things there too. But I just think that the spacing on this team is so much different than what it was last year. And again, I think that I think that I'll be shocked, Chad, if there is a practice that you go to that there aren't like 5 different moments, and you're probably going to have trouble trying to remember all of the moments, but there's probably going to be like 5 moments that you have at every single practice where you're like, what the fuck am I actually watching here? Is this for real?
The good news is Kelsey is really good at notes in her phone. Like you wouldn't believe, Aaron, no lie. She has notes in her phone on every kid that UC was recruiting in the portal. Just from sitting here listening to, like, she would sit in the office and listen to me, like, have conversations with people. And she has a notes app that has all of it in there. So when I take her to these workouts this summer, like, honey, take notes and read them back to me tonight while we're doing the podcast.
Fools of a misspent youth.
I mean, if I'm going to have her, if I'm going to groom her into an assistant in this business venture, I'm going to put her ass to work.
Roy, wrap it up.
Last question. Over under 50% chance the baseball team makes it out of the regional.
Well, one, we're assuming they make the regional. So, I mean, I guess just mathematically, since we're talking math right now.
We are
mathematically, we don't know if they're going to make the regional yet. So I would have to say under 50% chance that they make it out of the regional, because we are not it is not a certainty that they make it in.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, the all-time heroic performance of heroic performances on the last day of the regular season is what gets them in. But I still think you'd feel a lot more comfortable if you win a couple games in the Big 12 tournament and you're playing on like Thursday, Friday. If you go 2-out, boy, I think it's going to be tough to get it. I think it's going to be tough to get in.
Yeah.
They're right on the cusp. They're right on the cusp. Like, they are the bubble.
Right. Josh Hageman is the man you're referencing there. How about that? Your first home run of your career is a grand slam to take the lead against nationally ranked Oklahoma on senior day. I mean,
your senior day. You're a senior. You've never hit a home run in your career, and you hit a grand slam in a 6-6 game against ranked Oklahoma in the bottom of the 8th.
Yeah, I can't make that shit up.
Isn't that essentially what the Dodgers did with a guy in one of the World Series games at one point? I think it was the Dodgers. There was somebody who had never hit a home run. Anyway, baseball's got all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
Shit like this happens that shouldn't happen all the time. But I think that's because there's any given day, there's 6,000 baseball games being played.
And my favorite, it was like 364 feet. So it was like just over the fence. It was like 90, 96, 97 mile an hour exit velocity. Like, it was, as somebody that hit one home run over a fence in my entire baseball career, and I had a decent baseball career, it was one of those like just perfect, like perfect settings. For me, it was the wind was gusting to right field, and it just carried it just barely over the fence. And as I rounded the bases, the look on everybody's face on our rival that we were playing was, "Are you shitting me? Are you shitting me? We're playing a team that's this good, and that guy hits a fucking home run."
I'm pretty sure you just described the plot of Angels in the Outfield.
Crypt Keeper, we don't give a shit about the Bengals on this podcast. I love you. Stop asking. We're not going to talk about the Bengals here. I love you.
Yeah,
it's not happening.
I mean, that was literally
ask Aaron and George tomorrow night.
Was literally an amazing finish to that game, and honestly, an amazing finish to a series where, obviously game one was what game one was, and then game two you were like, oh, wait a minute, and then Oklahoma said, oh no, we're Oklahoma, and then to have that happen in the game three, you get one that you desperately need, especially after the debacle against UConn earlier in the week. It just lined up perfectly. Now, their first game is tomorrow at 5. They play those pesky Golden Knights of Central Florida. You beat them. I had this all pulled up. You beat them. You have a chance to then go on to survive and advance. It's a double elimination. Just like you said, Chad, don't go
win a couple games.
Yeah, don't
win
go
a couple games.
Right. So, I mean, Big 12 is good, but I think the Bearcats are showing they're pretty damn good too. As far as getting out of the regional, I'm also with you there. Just get there first, and I'll be happy with that because and I think everyone should be, because getting out of regional is tough to do. On top of just everything else that has transpired, especially even making it there, it's extremely tough to do. So, man, the special season continues, and how about that? Just one hell of a weekend, being Dylan Mitchell and then Hagman with that with that long ball. Just a fun way to wrap it up for the Bearcats.
Yeah,
Aaron, anything on that front?
No, I'm ready to mailbag it up.
Yeah, buddy. Just real quick, one last thing. There were a couple football commits. Samuel Cray. Are we going with Pack here? I guess
I think so, yeah.
Offensive lineman commits to the Bearcats, and then Trey Gola-Callard transfers to Cincinnati. So a couple of additions there. Bearcats continuing to add to what has already been, great additions. One via the portal, one via obviously a high schooler, and man, he's got some size to him. That is as a big human being out of the state of Illinois, and you know what? See what you can mold him into, and see what you can
go
develop.
Get those NFL measurables at offensive line. Go get size, arm, like wingspan, length, athleticism. Go get those measurables at offensive line, and more often than not, they will develop.
Yep, agreed. All right, let's timestamp mailbag.
All right, that timestamp brought to you by our good friends at Quick Paper Supply, your local and family-owned restaurant supply company for all your non-food products. They service over 150 restaurants with weekly low minimum next day deliveries, providing a wide range of food service products from to-go containers, cups, custom printed products, eco-friendly, and much more. They also have cleaning and restroom supplies for all your janitorial needs. Call our guy Nick, 513-470-2029, and reference Bearcats for 20% off your first month of purchases.
Before we dive into this mailbag, I did want to give a shout out to the 7 Bearcats who earned all conference honors in baseball. Yes. You had Josh Cross, who was a first team All Big 12. Christian Mitchell named to second team All Big 12. Those are 2 of your 7 there. And then you also had Nathan Taylor, who was named to the league's all freshman team. Loudon Brooks, who's a friend of the network. Carrington Cross, Josh Hegeman, and Tommy O'Connor all named honorable mention All Big 12 as well. So a monster season for the Bearcats. Turns out 7 guys who all got some accolades. So giant hat tip on their tremendous season.
Oh, yeah.
Moving on to the mailbag. We will start, as always, in the football portion of the mailbag with a new defensive scheme and roster turnover. How much confidence do you have that the defense will get to the quarterback better this year compared to 2023? Last year, UC was tied for second worst in the Big 12 in team sacks. What is the ceiling for 2024?
I wish I had a great answer for this. They did not put a lot of the blitz package in because obviously they were installing the base. I don't know. Like, I don't know exactly how they intend the pressure to come. I have not sat down and watched just a ton of Iowa State's defense. And I don't think it's fair to watch like year 7 of what Iowa State's defense looked like and compare it to year 1 of what Tyson Veit is installing here and having to work with, maybe a bunch of guys that don't necessarily, they're not square pegs and square holes.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the defense play in pods as well all yes. Spring? So you all had spring. The offense playing in pods, you had the defense playing in pods.
No, the offense was pretty much what the offense is going to be. I mean, there were some that I don't think you can pod the offense the way that you did with the defense, Aaron. I don't think it's really possible.
I guess what I'm getting at is you didn't necessarily see ones against twos, ones against ones.
You did not.
That's my point. My larger point is yes. The fact that we have no idea, A, what this defense is going to look like, B, who the ones and twos even are, because we've not seen a solid group at any given moment throughout the entirety of the spring.
I'm sure there were some points in time where the pods lined up, but it almost felt like they intentionally didn't.
Probably.
Where they wanted first team safeties with second team linebackers with like a third team defensive line or whatever, push
people to their limits and find out who really wants a challenge for a spot. I get why they did it.
I mean, if you just take a look at the personnel across the defensive line, and Royer talk on this a little bit too. I mean, you got Malik. He's not necessarily a pass rusher. You got Jawan, not necessarily a pass rusher. Dante, and Eric Phillips, who's gotten better at it, but you didn't really have that prototypical pass rusher. DG was supposed to be that guy, and he was kind of slowly figuring out his role on the defense all throughout the year. But it seems like this offseason they at least tried to answer some of those pass rushing questions. Then you get Bartlett, who can come in the linebacker position. You've got obviously Coleman, who's a player that they want to line up as a pass rushing type. I think, yes, some of it is scheme wise, but I think some of it you just got to have a guy who is used to getting after the quarterback in the end. Because last year it just wasn't really an attribute that the defense really seemed to have.
So can I give you
also combine that with the worst defensive backfield we've had in probably 5 years,
a decade. Yeah. Well, at least since 2016. Like year one with Luke, that defensive backfield was suspect. It was bad. But by 2018, they were very good and getting better. Can I give you a name to watch? Jake Golday. Transfer linebacker.
Okay.
I had a source that is familiar with Jake Golday tell me he might be the best player on the team. He's a freak. NFL.
Who is this?
Jake Golday.
What's his name? Jake Golday.
Golday. He's a transfer linebacker. I would expect him to start at strong side linebacker. But it's going to be a situation of whatever gets the best guys on the field. I'm told he could play all three spots. Weak, Sam, Will, middle, Mike, like you name it. The staff believes this kid is a game changer at linebacker. So we'll see. Obviously, it's very, very high praise. But I know he was the one guy. He came from Central Arkansas. And he was the one of two guys, the other being the offensive lineman that they got. Xavier Lozowicki. They think those two guys are long-term impact guys. But that they think he'll play strong side linebacker to start. I guess Ryan's internet finally bombs over Baghdad, whatever the mortar shells were going off downtown finally got to Ryan.
He had to leave and go grind some tape of Jake Golday.
So yeah, I know they are very excited about Jake Golday. How about that?
I like it. Oh, you're muted, Aaron.
Can you explain how our 3-3 defensive front is supposed to work with the new scheme? I assume that one of the defensive ends will be a jumbo Briggs type, and the other might be a more traditional end. Phillips, or the transfer from EMU, is our edge rusher and outside linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, you almost always have to have a 3-tech, like a big physical edge, deep, like set the edge, strong side. Hey, knock it off. Sorry. You almost have to have a bit like a run stuffing defensive tackle, and then a 3 technique on the edge that's also on the strong side that's going to be able to fill and run support, and then an edge rusher on the other side. That's just the nature of running 3 defensive linemen. So I would expect that. Yeah, I don't think you can't really go with, if you're in a 4-man front, you can go with 2 guys on the outside that can get up the field. You don't want your strong side end up the field as the running back runs past him for 27 yards on the strong side. So
Saw that enough last year. I don't want to really rinse, wash, and repeat.
Yeah. And that was with Briggs and Corleone.
Oh, I know.
As your two guys. So, yeah. And hopefully linebacker play is better because it wasn't great last year. Just be honest.
Well, speaking of the two deep, any thoughts on what the depth chart might look like? Way too early roster predictions.
Oh, man.
Not really. Especially defensively because we just haven't seen it. I'll go back to hold on. I'm gonna pull something up I had saved. At linebacker, just for instance, we talked about Golday.
Yep.
Danco can play Mike or Will, so the middle or the weak side. Jonathan Thompson can play either of the outside spots, the Sam or the Will. Jared Bartlett's really a middle linebacker, the way that they've put him into that position. Simeon Coleman, middle or weak side. So, there's a kind of a math problem that you have to use at linebacker, which I think is almost the same at safety because you have so many guys, I think, that can make an impact at safety.
Interchangeable parts.
And then you start playing out the season and you figure out which guys are going to make plays.
Yeah. I mean, you look at this past year, just with what you just mentioned, and you can't really dive too much into seeing where people transfer to, but the talent that was brought in, you look at those players that did leave and where they ended up. It's a pretty obvious step up in just simple talent across the board. And now it's like Aaron said, just see who's out there making plays. Just a lot of different parts that can fit. Well, I'm trying to get to what you said too. That can just fit at numerous spots. I mean, last year it was kind of just Dingle and Jonathan Thompson, and then whoever else can try and help out at the linebacker spot.
Well, I mean, obviously, like Dorian Jones just wasn't good enough. Wasn't the guy that they hoped he could be, getting a feature spot, and then they didn't have any depth behind that.
Right.
And they tried
Hunter,
they tried the experiment with Pace kind of playing the nickel.
Right.
He had some good moments. He had some moments he was awful.
Right.
What they did at safety didn't work. What they did at corner didn't work. So there are more. I don't know if they're going to be good. Like I can't say with any confidence whether they're going to be good or not. What I can say is they seem to have a bunch of guys that they're going to be able to throw against the wall and see what sticks.
Right.
Which is more than I can say for last year because it felt like we have option A, and if option A doesn't work, we're the worst defense in the Big 12.
I think it's fair to say, though, of the guys that they brought in compared to the guys that were here last year, that they passed the eye test in just who they are. Like, as you look at them as players, they look like they have more talent.
They're longer. They're more athletic. They've got more speed. They move better. Those things are all important.
So just wanted to put that out there. Is there any realistic chance to land cornerback Mark Zachary of Indianapolis, Ben Davis, or is he definitely Notre Dame bound? He commits on Friday, May 25th.
I think there is definitely a realistic chance to potentially land him in the transfer portal in a year or two. I think he's the long-term feeling is that our old friend Mike Mickens has done the best job recruiting Mark Zachary, and that all expectations are that he will go to Notre Dame.
There you go. That is the basketball portion. Or I'm sorry, the football portion of the mailbag. Move on to the basketball portion of the mailbag. What is the one Monster Factory related development you'd each most like to see this summer? For example, Aziz adds 15 pounds of muscle, etc. Way to take that one off the board, AC Mazzaro.
Do you want me to steal Aaron's right away, or do you want me to let Aaron go first?
Hey, go, Aaron.
I don't know. I would have said Aziz adding 15 pounds of muscle, but I'm not sure where you're going to go with this, Chad. So why don't you go ahead?
Arlington Page adding 15 pounds of muscle and really legitimately becoming a backup center that you can feel comfortable on the floor for 15, 17, 18, 20 minutes a game. I think that here was the roughest part of last year. I think they hit on Aziz, and Aziz did exactly what they wanted from him. Jameel Reynolds did not. Jameel Reynolds did not provide those 15, 17, 18 minutes a game of doing what he was supposed to be good at.
Yeah.
Now, AP is different in the things he's good at than Jameel is. But if AP can come in for 15, 17, 18 minutes a game and run the floor, block shots, hit an occasional three, like as the trail guy or as the pick and pop guy, give you a couple buckets at the rim on offensive rebounds. I think he becomes maybe the most interesting guy on the roster because let's be honest, he's going to play a lot.
Yeah.
He's going to have the opportunity to play a lot. Like break glass in case of emergency, Dylan Mitchell can give you 10, 12, 15 minutes a game at the 5. I don't think you want that. I think you want him at the 4 or potentially stretching out to the 3, or just as we've got Mitchell and Seamas on the floor at the same time, and they complement each other really well with the things that they do. That's only going to be the case if AP shows I am the backup to Aziz and I can give you 7, 8 points a game realistically, 6, 7, 8 rebounds a game realistically, and be able to defend the pick and roll, be able to, I don't know, West doesn't switch a ton, but be able to kind of hold your ground and not have to go into. I think a lot of the problem they had last year, like they want to play that, they want to ice. They want to play ice coverage. Well, if your center can't move and defend, then he has to play drop. And he has to just kind of stand at the free throw line and wait for whatever happens to happen. If you've got a guy like Page that can come in and move his feet and be athletic and be active, you don't have to play drop coverage. He can be a little closer to his man. So his man doesn't just get to set the screen and then pop and have 6, 7 feet of space to launch a 3-point shot. So if Mike can get Page right to back up Aziz, I think that's a huge plus. And by the way, I did have a long conversation with Danny Hurley and Kamani Young, who is Danny Hurley's right-hand man at UConn. They are still gutted over losing Mike Rayfeld. If there's any question as to how good Mike Rayfeld is, the best coach in the game considers Mike Rayfeld the best basketball strength and conditioning guy in the game.
Yeah.
He said to me, straight to my face, I was gutted the day that Mike came into my office and told me he was going back to Cincinnati.
You hate to see.
He's like, we still managed to do all right with Mike gone, 2 national championships. Right. They figured it out, but he was like, Mike was the best in the business that I've ever worked with, coming from a guy that's the best coach in the game. That's how good Mike Rayfeld is, for any of you that are wondering. And I don't think Danny would even get mad at me for sharing that, because I think he would say it if I asked him, in a live show format.
On a lie detector. I think the joke would be that you'd love to see Dan Skillings work with Mike on opening up those hip flexors, but then you'd probably be terrified for the dance team. That said, said, I do hope that Dan actually gets some work in with Mike,
because Dan would be on the dance team. That's what you meant, right? Because then Dan would be on the dance team.
That was the joke, right?
Yeah.
but I'm hoping that he works on something that can fix just the coordination. I guess that I don't know if it's where you're doing the light up game or whatever it is that gets him to fix the turnovers, where you had like the dribbling turnovers or the bad pass turnovers, or like it was just like almost like a slow reaction. So I don't know if that's the reaction time or what you can do in regards to that. But that's where I would like to see some work done.
Yeah, I mean, you guys hit on all of them. I mean, why don't we just give Jizzle just a little, just one extra step of burst, that first step of just like a blow by. Let's
like we're trying to make make Mr. Flash a little quicker. If the Flash was only a little quicker,
I'm nitpicking here.
Then really, what would the MCU really look like if the Flash was a little quicker?
Well, I think Day-Day's got that first step burst a little bit more. I think Jizzle's got that. I don't know. I just think let's turn Jizzle into
I'm just messing
Russell Westbrook with a better shot. How about that?
Well, at least we didn't make any CJ Frederick hammy jokes. So
sometimes you have to use discretion.
All right. What would you like and or expect to see with the rest of the non-conference schedule? Seems like great schedule so far with opportunities for high intensity, high leverage games. At NKU will be their Super Bowl, Dayton neutral site, and Crosstown shootout, plus 2 solid road games.
Here's what we know so far, Aaron. Villanova, last year we'll use net just because it's what the NCAA tournament says that they use. Villanova was 41 in net. I think they're going to take a dip from there. They did not have a great portal season, at least to date.
Very weird portal season.
Xavier is 64 in net. I expect that to be significantly better. Georgia Tech, 127 in net. I expect that to be significantly better. Dayton was 23 in net. That is going to drop because they lost a lot, and didn't backfill with a ton. But I still think they'll be top 100, potentially top 75 type team. NKU, 183 in net, which is a really good buy game, or it's at NKU, so it's not even necessarily a buy game. Morehead State, which Rothstein put out there, was 106 in net. That's exactly where you want to be in buy games. Howard was 273. So far at this point, they have 4 games to be announced. 2 of them MTE. I expect those to be home games against mid-majors. I don't think you're going to see any more top 150 net games in the 4 games remaining. I do think you need some ability to build your roster, some ability to put yourself in situations where you can find out what 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 on your roster looks like. Mm-hmm. So I do not expect a huge splash with the rest of the games.
Did you mention the Georgia Tech one? Sorry.
Yeah. I said that last year they were 127 in net is where they finished. I expect that to be top 75-ish probably.
Yeah, I feel like they aren't really getting the amount of love that they kind of deserve. Obviously, it's more of a wait and see approach as they're going through a flux of roster as well. But they had some good moments last year. So yeah. I mean, the whole just 20 game Big 12 schedule is kind of just wild. Obviously, you don't want to load in too many, but the non-conference schedule is pretty damn solid right now. But
there are going to be a couple Big 12 games that are outside the top 100. That's just that's going to happen. But ultimately, if Nova's top 100, Xavier's top 50, Georgia Tech's top 100, Dayton's top 75, that's 24, potentially 24 top 100 games.
Right.
You don't guess what? Xavier ran into this situation last year where they overextended their non-conference. And it hurt them. And it probably cost them the bubble or like a shot at the bubble and getting into the tournament because they went too far in their non-conference. And when you have 20 league games, and especially 20 league games without a break, no bye week, no Tuesday off to let your team chill,
recharge.
I don't think you need to go crazy in the out of conference. I know it's easy as fans to look at it and say, I want the hardest schedule possible. You don't have millions of dollars on the line for how the team ends. Not how it goes, but how the team ends. So I would say I think we've seen probably all of the high quality games that we're going to see. And from there, we'll go from there. I can't breathe. This sucks.
Who is your most likely sixth man? Seamoss, Jizzle, Hickman, or Day? There's an asterisk here, keeping in mind if Mitchell starts at the 4 and Dan starts at the 3, Seamoss has to come off the bench, which I don't believe that to be true.
I would go probably Hickman or Day, with an outside chance that we see Seamoss in that, like I said, you don't start, but you come in at the 17-minute mark and you play just as many minutes as everybody else. But I would guess either Day or Hickman, given this question.
There's also a chance that changes. It changed last year who the sixth man was, as Dan started as your sixth man and certainly did not finish as your sixth man.
Right. Well, Dan had a lot of development that he needed to show coming into last year. I don't think there's anybody like Jizzle showed that development at the end of his freshman year that Dan didn't show. I think Jizzle starts. I think Seamoss starts. So Hickman or Day.
I guess the point that I'm getting at is I'm curious to see what the development of Tyler Betsy looks like next year and how quickly he pushes himself into the conversation for I need more minutes.
He also is not in a situation where he had to play.
Sure.
Jizzle had to play. Again, I've said this a couple times, and I need to say it more. We do not give Wes enough credit for the risk, for the absolute insane gamble he took last year at point guard with two guys that had never dribbled a basketball in a Division I game going into year one in the Big 12.
And only two.
Only two. Yeah. That was it. And those guys were really good. Really good. Different, but really good, both of them. If that didn't work, that team has 3 or 4 Big 12 wins and not 7, and they don't make the NIT, and everybody is having a much fucking different conversation about this roster going into this coming season.
And there's a whole different conversation going on about Wes Miller as well.
Yes, that's what I mean. Like everything is framed differently. If he was wrong about Jizzle and Day, and he was right.
And one of the hypotheticals I always love is, you look at the starters now that Mitchell's added, and then you look at the potential hypothetical backups, and it's like Day, Hickman, CJ, Betsy, and Page. Where would those 5 that starting 5 finish in the Missouri Valley Conference? It's like it's insane to think about.
In the American Conference.
All the way at the tippy top of the Missouri Valley's garbage conference.
No,
garbage.
It's crazy to think about, and I mean,
here's where Aaron's right. Hickman was the best guard in the Missouri Valley.
Right. Yeah. Day would probably be the best guard in the Missouri Valley too. It's just a healthy CJ. Betsy's playing.
So who's your sixth man?
It's Hickman for me.
I would love to see Day take a step forward. So I think that the minutes are there for Day, probably more so than Hickman. So I'm going to go Day, and I think that offensively, I think he's going to take a step forward as well. Not that Hickman's going to struggle to find minutes. I just think that they're far more available for Day than they are going to be.
I will say this: do not be surprised if Hickman ends up starting at the 2, and things have to figure.
Then he's still not the 6th man. Nailed it. All right.
Like I said, good problems to have.
Any word on Day's foot injury?
We covered that.
I know.
He's expected. Yeah, I know. He's expected to be ready for summer workouts. I don't know that necessarily means full contact, but as far as individuals and skill development, he is expected to be ready by the start of June.
All right. What would be the best guess minutes for Dylan at the 3 and the 5? I'm guessing he gets 15 to 20 or so at the 4.
Yeah, that's kind of what we need to find out in the offseason, right?
Rotations are going to be fascinating.
Well, that is he. Remember, this is a new system. So if we're going down this road where he's playing minutes at the 3, the 4, and the 5, those are significantly different positions to learn, offense and defense. So asking him right away to come in and learn 3 different positions on both sides of the ball, if he has the mental capacity for that, then watch out. But I do think that'll probably take a little bit of time as you go through the season to figure out when can we use him as a small ball 5? When can we use him as a jumbo 3? And when do we use him where he's probably most naturally gifted and suited in the college game, which is at the 4? I would guess at least 15 minutes a game at the 4, at least. And then you figure out the other 10, 12 minutes a game where he's going to play from there.
I'm probably 20 minutes at the 4, and then spot here and there. If Page is ready to take that step and be that backup to Aziz, then I don't think you really need to experiment with Mitchell much at the 5. And then you've got Dan and CMOS and
some of this also, Brent, is Tyler McKinley related.
Right. Yeah.
Is he ready? Can he give you 5, 7, 8 minutes at the 5?
Right.
Because if he can, then you don't have to play Mitchell there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think some of this also goes into the Tyler Betsy conversation where if he's pushing for minutes, do you have to find a place to get him minutes? Does he slot in at the 3?
Which means you have to play Mitchell more at the 3 and the 5.
Right. So there's
the math
so many
is
and then
there's so many.
There's you add in Ravon, and then you add in. There's a lot going on. There's a lot.
Yeah,
a ton of
going to be exciting to see.
Regardless, it's good to know that it sounds like he's a guy who will put in the time to try and figure it out. It sounds like he's the type of guy who will put in the work, which is a little different than some people who were here last year. Just saying. The coaching staff really seems to be hitting their stride on both recruiting and player retention. Are there specific recruiting/retention roles given to each coach by Wes? If so, man, there's a ton in this mailbag. If so, any insight as to what they are?
So I don't think it's anything specific. I think it's if you're the guy that recruited the kid, continue that relationship, continue to build that trust, and then rely on the fact that Wes really has an ability to relate to his players. I don't think it's anything specific this guy's in charge of, keeping guys off the ledge when they get frustrated. I think it's you have a great relationship with the guy that brought you in. And if you have any concerns or if you have any frustrations or whatever, that is the guy that you're going to deal with directly. And you're also going to deal with the head coach who, has a great understanding of where you are in the system, where you are in the rotation, and he's going to be honest with you. I think that's the main thing on player retention in 2024 is, look, these guys aren't stupid. Like, these guys generally have come through, they played for great AAU programs and they played for great high school programs, and they had tough coaches and coaches that didn't kiss their ass. And I think a lot of these days is all a kid wants is honesty.
Yeah.
They want a coach that's not going to feed them bullshit, because they have great bullshit detectors. If they tell you, if a coach comes in, sits you down, like you come into his office and the coach says, your minutes are coming. Like, I meant to get you in last game, but the
keep
game
up the hard
happened
work.
and I didn't. Well, not even that. Like, keep up the hard work is fair. Like, keep working and keep pushing yourself up. But like a coach like Wes is going to say, hey, here's the guy that's in front of you. And if you want to beat the guy that's in front of you, I'll see you at practice at 5:00. And you'll have your chance every day to outplay that guy. And if you outplay that guy, I'm going to start giving you some of his minutes. He has done that here over his 3 years.
Unequivocally, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have seen guys that played 22 minutes at the start of the season that were playing 5 by the end because somebody beat them out.
Right.
So he's going to be straight up and say, this is the guy that you have to beat. And if you do it, you're going to take his minutes. And he's going to tell the guy in front of him, this guy's coming for your ass. And you better get it together, or you better play better, or he's going to take your minutes. And we have seen those situations play out in real time where one guy saw his minutes go like this and the other guy saw his minutes go like that. We all thought early last year, Josh Reed was doomed. And guess what? Josh Reed found his role. He met with Wes. Wes told him, if you do this, if I can trust you to be the backup to John Newman, then you're going to get minutes. And what did Josh Reed do? He went and he focused on being the backup to John Newman, and he earned those minutes. And other guys saw their minutes decrease because Josh Reed did that. I think as long as you're honest with guys, you're much more likely to keep them in the program. And I think that is what this staff does. I don't think there's any specific, like, this guy specializes in this, this guy specializes in that. I think Wes sets the tone of, I'm going to shoot you straight. And if you don't do it, somebody's going to pass you, or your minutes are going to decrease. And if they decrease, guess what? He sits you down and says, how was practice look the past 2 weeks? Did you get your ass kicked? Yeah, you did? Well, then you better pick it up, because that guy passed you. I think honesty goes a long way in 2024. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, there's 360 plus Division I basketball teams that all have the ability for NIL. Obviously, some a lot more than others. So that's about relationship building and honesty, and because there are other chances for every single player to go get NIL at a different place, or go get more playing time in a different place, or go get a starting role at a different place. But if you build that relationship and you do it the honest way, then more often than not, these players will listen and they'll hear that. I mean, you look at Dylan Mitchell, man. The guy is a what?
I'm laughing at Chad's entire face as he looks like he just got done blowing his entire face off.
It literally
into a Kleenex.
I think what I just blew into the Kleenex was connected to my brain. Like, I felt my brain.
I felt good. Yeah, good feeling. But yeah, no, pretty much everything that you said, I agree.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's fine. I got exactly what you were laughing at, and it was true. Like, I felt that last hunk that I blew out was like it was connected to a piece of the nerve tissue above my eyeball.
Gross.
Yes.
In all of the ways. Where does Mitchell rank in all-time Bearcat recruits without benefit of hindsight? Just the type of the recruit coming to Clifton. Anybody jump out at you, Brent?
I mean, we all got pretty damn excited when Lance said he was coming. I think the excitement was there for Aziz last year. Landers, Yancey, but he was more just because it's local. Jaron, but yet again another kind of local thing. As far as this goes, I'd say there was a rather large amount of excitement when Aziz announced last year. But
so
as far as high profile, it would probably be Lance.
This one is really interesting because he was given his ranking as a product of potential. He was not a finished product coming out of high school. Well, he was given his ranking because he has the size and the athleticism and like the mentality.
Do you remember what it was that put him on the map?
Amani Bates.
Yeah.
He locked up Amani Bates.
Yeah. And then what?
And then he continued every week to get better. Huh?
I think that was in India is what I heard from one of the.
It was.
And then they said because he wasn't like a refined product. He was like you're saying. It was.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the thing. Yeah.
It was potential.
Yeah.
I think he's unique in that he is a couple years into his college career and has understood. Like, I wasn't Amani Bates, right? Like Amani Bates is a top 5 kid because he's just so natural with his ability to score, so natural with his overall game. That wasn't ever Dylan Mitchell. Dylan Mitchell was, this kid could be an impact guy as he progresses and as he develops. Well, he is now at kind of the crossroads of okay, you've been pretty good. You've made a solid impact. Now is the time as a third-year college player. Are you ready to take that next step and be like a critical piece to a really, really good team? So I don't know that there's anybody I'd specifically compare him to on that front because I think his profile, one, there's not been many guys that have come in as, his recruiting profile is top 5 recruit in the country.
Right.
That's right.
All-American.
Yeah. McDonald's All-American, top 5 recruit in the country. We don't see a whole lot of those. But also why he was there and where he is at now in his development are at an interesting crossroads. It's going to be on this staff to take him to the next level because let's be honest. I think you guys would agree with this.
I kind of got one, Chad.
But let me finish real quick. If he finishes this season at 9.5 points and 7 rebounds, I think we're going to say maybe not what we expected. Maybe we expected a little more. Whether that's fair or not. 12 and 10, Aaron. 13 and 9. Like something like that. I think you would agree is the next step for him if he's going to make that type of impact to where what I think when I say that is he's still going to have those games like he had against UConn where he's 21 points and 8 rebounds. What you need less of are the games where he had 6 and 4. Because if he has a bunch of those 6 and 4 games, we're going to be sitting here on the live show after the game, Aaron, and going, man, they probably could have used a little more Dylan Mitchell tonight.
Probably.
So I think the floor has to raise for him to meet his goals. I think the ceiling is fine. I think what we know is the ceiling of him is reasonable. That he needs to have a better floor as a junior. Go ahead. Who do you think?
Well, no, it just McDonald's All-American, high-level recruit, started his career somewhere else, didn't really do too much. I mean, obviously Dylan Mitchell did a lot more at Texas than James White did at Florida, but maybe a little bit of James White feel.
But, not bad. They both won the dunk contest, right? I think Dylan Mitchell won the dunk contest, didn't he?
Yeah, some high flyers. There you go.
How about another Texas transfer?
Oh, little Mike Williams.
Mike Williams, who, if he didn't have the Achilles injury, I think would have been Mick's first really, really, really good player.
Yeah, he would have.
I love Mike Williams. Such a nice guy.
All right. There was one that came up in the football portion of the mailbag that I came up since we started the show. Thoughts on Zeb from Toronto? Did we get a steal? Is it going to be difficult to hold on to him to signing day?
Toronto, Ohio. First off, I saw one of the articles from the Elite 11 that he was at this weekend. Said he was Canadian. He's not from. He does not know Drake. He's from Toronto, Ohio.
Did we get a steal? With ketchup, not with gravy.
Did we get a steal? Potentially, it looks like it. If you look at some of the videos of him and his ability to kind of move the pocket and throw the ball with some serious velocity, yeah. Is it going to be difficult to hold on to him until signing day? That will be interesting to see who jumps in as quarterback. We heard Penn State jumped in or is making a push, but as a linebacker. The kid wants to play quarterback. So if there's a bunch of teams that jump in on him as a quarterback, maybe the math changes, but I think there is some bond, some connection to Cincinnati because Cincinnati believed in him as a quarterback, even though he had Liz Frank. He missed his junior season with a foot injury, broken bone in his foot. Cincinnati said, we're recruiting you as a quarterback. We see you as like the future of the quarterback here. So we'll see if that changes.
If you want to switch to linebacker, if you want to switch to linebacker from a quarterback, why not do it at a school that's already done that with somebody?
We don't know how good he is yet at linebacker, though. So look, if he makes the NFL as a linebacker, then yeah, you can use that all the time. We're going to play you at quarterback, and we can also move you to linebacker because we've done that before. Get you to the NFL.
This guy's sent plenty of linebackers to the NFL, just saying.
He has.
All right, that is the end of the football and basketball portions of the mailbag with that last question there. And then there's only one question. I'm not convinced Skins is not. Does he have somebody else running his Twitter account? Is that I don't know where he's going. He is MIA.
I'm disappointed.
He's got a grandchild now.
Yeah, where is he?
Apparently he has.
I'm not mad. I think his wife just told him no more mailbag questions.
I just wonder if he got, all the jokes about killing me caught up, and now somebody's running his account, and they don't realize that they need to drop mailbag questions.
Look, people, we need mailbag questions in the banks. We need some off-topic stuff because Skins now doesn't exist in this world anymore, and it's sad.
Well, the only one we got here is from CREX43. I'm very thankful and appreciative of the content the BCJ team provides for us Bearcats fans, second to none. For those of us that consume your podcast in audio format, and I wanted to make sure to get this question in because it seems like most of the consumption for CREX is in the audio format. For those of us that consume your podcasts in audio format, does BCJ get monetized the same if we listen audio only or watch videos? Also, I don't see the nightcap episodes in my podcast app, but would love to listen to those as well. Could those be added to the podcast list, or am I doing something wrong? Your content gets me through a long commute to and from work.
So those are kind of strategic choices. The nightcap is kind of our YouTube exclusive show. Pretty much everything else we put on the podcast format. There needs to be when you're doing as many things as we do, I think there needs to be some exclusive content for each kind of format that makes it different. Also, the monetization in terms of podcast format is the sponsorships, the ads. That's what allows us to put a lot of stuff in podcast content. YouTube is monetized. So we make money off of all of the listens that are done on the YouTube channel. And it's based on, a certain formula per 1,000 listens. The YouTube channel has turned into a fairly significant form of monetization. So there needs to be a little bit of stuff, a little bit of focus there that is not done anywhere else. I'm working on a little something maybe in the off season into the season that could be kind of podcast exclusive, or at least done on Twitter Spaces on like a Friday and then put into podcast format, the saved audio. So there is some stuff we're working on to keep the balance between everything, because it's really difficult, because there are people that really only go to the website and they want all of the content on the website. Mm-hmm. And then there are people that only do the audio form of the content, like you, often in your car, often driving. That's easy for you. There are people at home that sit in their bed with their wife right next to them and watch us three idiots all the time. Yep. So there's a balance of, I've talked about it in like a menu format before. Like when you go to a restaurant, some restaurants only have a couple things on the menu, and they do those really well. Mm-hmm. We have become a restaurant that has quite a bit on the menu, and we're trying to make sure we do all of those things on the menu really well. The written word, the message board, the podcasts, the video shows. So unfortunately, there's not a perfect answer to appease everybody. 1 second. I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of people that are like, why don't you put like bullet point breakdowns of all the podcasts on the message board? Because none of you would listen to the podcasts if we summarized everything and you didn't have to listen to it. And what would happen then? Our ad rates would go down, because I don't think people understand that ad rates are based on listeners. So the more listeners we have, the more we're able to charge people to be sponsors of these shows, the more I'm able to pay Aaron and Brent and Keegan and Royer and everybody that works in this ecosystem. So there does have to be some balance. The nightcaps on podcast form, I've debated that in my head quite a bit. I don't think we're at that point yet. I think maybe if there was like a second sponsor for the nightcaps, we could maybe do that. But as it stands, like that is one of the main drivers of revenue on the YouTube channel, is that we do the nightcap like 5 nights a week. And that keeps up the like keeping us in the algorithm to where it's showing up in people's feed and they're clicking on it. And we're still, part of that is also gaining new members, so that new people are becoming part of the experience, and new members of the fan base are finding the content. So it's a difficult balance, Crex. I wish I had a perfect answer to where we can get all of the information to everybody and everything kind of stays the same. And I understand the frustration from people. Like if I'm a person that only reads the message board or only reads the content and doesn't have time for the podcast, I get the frustration that I'm like missing something. But you have to also understand that if I just gave you all of the information on the podcast in written form, nobody would watch the podcast, or a lot less people would watch the podcast, and then our rates would go down. and then I'd have to fire Aaron. And only Kelsey wants that to happen.
I'd probably be the first. Well, Skins wanted me to actually be killed. But
maybe that's what Skins is plotting this whole time.
This is actually Skins. Craig's 43. He wants to know what has to be done to get Aaron the fuck up out of here. I hope that explained a lot of it for you guys, because there is a lot that goes into it in terms of like making the decisions that we make and deciding like, do we put a focus here? Do we put a focus there? The focus will always be, well, I won't say always, but right now the focus remains on the message board, on the website, because that is the largest revenue generator. But the other stuff is still, we're making more off of the podcasts and the video stuff than we made by a pretty wide margin when I took over the site in total. So like this part of the business has already outreached where we were in 2016 as an entire company. So that is something we still need to continue to build and grow. But that also means, doing a lot of different stuff.
This was a follow-up in the chat here from Jeff. Yeah. Chad, from time to time, you're on 365 Sports with David Smoke. A setup like they have, is that studio setting expensive? Down the line, is a 365 Sports style show like they do a goal studio-based?
I don't know how much. I would like to talk to David about that at one point in time. Here's the problem with that, Jeff. They do a studio-based show. You know what that requires? Everybody to be in the studio.
Yep. Brent lives in it. Brent lives in Indy. I live in Athens.
Brent partially lives in Florida and Indy.
Yeah,
Aaron lives in Athens. No, it requires us to be in the same place at the same time. And if I was to do a show like that, it also requires a sales team. Because if you watch their shows, they have many, many, many more sponsors than we do. They have a sales team that is out selling that stuff. For us, we sell it ourselves. So it's, I would love to do something like that. We were all in the same place at the same time in the studio, talking about this stuff every day. But is it really that different that we're able to do this like this?
Yeah.
Just the professional look about it. I get what he's saying, but
I get what he's saying too. But how many places are able to do what we did a week ago?
I'd take what we did a week ago over having a studio. That's just me.
I would too. Yeah. So there's a lot to it, Jeff. I understand the question. Right now, it doesn't fit in our business model. That is their business model. Their business model is that studio show. Our business model is this, and so far it's working out pretty good. If it stops working out, I'll look to change things.
Appreciate the question though, all the same.
Thanks, Jeff. It's a great question. It's great conversation. I love being able to connect with our audience and explain the decisions that we make and why we make them and why they make business sense for us. Because I don't think many places do that. I think they just say, we do what we do. Screw it. I don't care what you think.
Also, Chad made sure to answer that question about as long-winded as he could to make sure we got over that 2.5-hour threshold for all of you keeping score. So we are back.
I thought it was fair though, Aaron. I thought it was the last show we did was 10.5 hours.
Literally. Get us out of here, Brent.
Not going to quite hit the 10.5-hour mark, but we are.
Royer, where's Ryan?
Yeah, where is Royer?
Never know what he's doing back there. Mom, the meatloaf.
Mortar
we
shells.
Want it.
Mortar shells
now.
Downtown.
I think he's on game 6 of Central Arkansas last year.
Bombs over downtown.
He's just grinding that Jake Galday videos.
He is. I mentioned Jake Galday and he was out.
Yeah, it's tape greater sign stars, and so he is locked in on Central Arkansas football right now. But no, guys, obviously a massive weekend for the Bearcats. Baseball firing up big time this week. Big 12 tournament. Stay locked in on that. Best of luck to Coach Bishel and the team. Obviously, they've done a lot to draw the fan base to check them out. So make sure you check them out starting tomorrow. So shouts to Danco Transmission Auto Care as always. Shouts to our boys over there at Quick Paper Supply, and shouts to New Riffin with Royer. Even though Royer's not here, it's still my favorite segment. So my guys, pals, squad, the crew, the gents, if you will. Aaron Smith, Chad Brenner, Ryan Royer. I am Brent Young. Get another fantastic BBP presented by BearcatJournal.com.
See ya.